SDG 15 and the Future of Farming, Saving Life on Land, voiced by Jess, Jemima and Luke. The UK is falling behind on its environmental targets, meeting just 3 out of 13 commitments according to the OEP. With biodiversity in crisis, one solution is gaining traction, nature-friendly farming. But can it really make a difference? SDG 15 Life on Land aims to restore ecosystems and halt biodiversity loss. The UK remains one of the most nature-depleted countries. So how do we balance food production with conservation? Today we explore how sustainable farming and post-Brexit policies align with SDG 15, from the environmental land management schemes to real-world solutions. We'll hear from Chris Jones of Woodland Valley Farm, a pioneer in regenerative agriculture. Is the UK doing enough to support this shift? Let's find out. Over to Chris.
Yeah, I'm Chris Jones and I'm an organic farmer from Laddock.
How has regenerative farming changed how you manage Woodland Valley Farm?
I suppose regenerative farming is a relatively modern term, which I first came across about 2010 or so. But we've been farming with organics, if you like, since 2003, and we had to make relatively minor changes.
How do these practices boost biodiversity and carbon sequestration?
We're no longer applying things which are directly poisonous or indirectly poisonous to land. One of the biggest problems we have is with our waterways, and if we're all farming away madly and using lots of artificial fertilizer, a lot of that will end up in the water system, and it is quite poisonous to all sorts of forms of life in there. So it's getting away from that is the important thing. Because if we turn away from artificial fertilizer, we can begin to clean up our rivers, and if we can clean our rivers, that's going to make it much better for all sorts of life to exist within those rivers, and indeed not just make the river better, it'll make the seaside better as well.
What's your take on current government environmental funding compared to past land-based subsidies?
So I think what this is, to me, what it's saying is they're not going to pay you to actually have beavers, but they will pay you to do things which favour having beavers. So, for example, converting the margin of land by a river, allowing that to become a wetland, is brilliant for beavers, and it takes away that competition with us. And there are 2 or 3 different ways of doing it with elm, I think, and it's just at last some sensible thinking about how we manage our land.
Given your work with Exeter University, do you feel responsible for advancing wild beaver reintroductions? How might this unfold?
When we first started up Cornwall Beaver Project, we always intended to be the catalyst or the start of something much, much bigger. Literally from the first day we let those beavers out, I said, this is just like a demonstration site, a research site, a place we can bring people and show them what happens when beavers come. And so, yeah, I feel absolutely a sense of responsibility.
The OEP warns the UK's environmental plan is off track. Is removing 9% of farmland a viable way to restore biodiversity and soil health?
I really think that beavers can be fundamental to this, because one of the things we've observed is down here is once the beavers get settled in and start building dams, other things start to happen. You're creating aquatic and semi-aquatic habitat and creating conditions for all sorts of species. Our actual food production per se, in kilos per hectare, it may not be all that much, but with the way we're farming and what we're doing, producing a great deal else besides, in terms of biodiversity, in terms of clean water.
Where is UK sustainable agriculture headed? Thoughts on the CCC's call for a 38% livestock reduction by 2050?
It's this thing about 38% less meat, that is looking at the world through the wrong end of the binoculars. And it will actually do more. So I would say, I think we've got to ask ourselves, what meat are we going to eat 38% less of? The stuff which we produce, which I should be selling it with a carbon credit. Are we talking about all the factory stuff?
Are you familiar with Sustainable Development Goal 15?
Not.
Thank you, Chris.
The UK's environmental future is at a critical crossroads. Sustainable farming isn't just about food production. It is about restoring biodiversity, protecting waterways, and ensuring our landscape thrives. Yet recent policy changes like ending the Sustainable Farming Incentive, SFI, and slashing the Basic Payment Scheme, BPS, have left farmers without essential support. Coupled with easing compulsory land purchasing, the countryside risks becoming a terra nullius, a neglected, visionless expanse. Nature-friendly agriculture offers a real solution to biodiversity loss and climate challenges. Chris Jones is a perfect example. He didn't even know about SDG 15, yet his commitment to sustainable farming is directly contributing to his success, restoring ecosystems and protecting natural resources. But with the UK meeting only 21% of SDG 15, these policy rollbacks are alarming. The current socialist Labour government's actions, echoing George Orwell's 1984 IGSOC, English socialism ironically, risk turning our countryside into a soulless airstrip one, where stripping away sustainable programs and making compulsory land purchasing easier erodes identity, culture and our connection to the land. Thank you to Chris Jones for sharing his insights. Join us next time as we continue exploring the future of sustainable agriculture and SDG 15. And don't forget to connect to the land, like the Fisher King in the Arthurian tales, because our true Holy Grail is nature itself.